The best of money matters. Wealth Tracker.
Welcome to the Wealth Tracker, where we dive into the uncharted territories of niche investment strategies that promise to redefine wealth. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, coffee customers around the world are experiencing a rise in coffee prices due to coffee-producing countries like Brazil and Vietnam to battle against unfavorable weather conditions and are struggling to meet market demands. Now, just for some context here, in December, the price of January futures for Robusta coffee reportedly rose above $5,885 per ton in November 2024, a level that was last seen in early 2008, while the price of Arabica coffee beans increased about $7,300 per ton, a record that was last seen in 1977. That marks a staggering 83% increase in 2024. So what's the outlook like for coffee prices in 2025 then? Will this bullish sentiment remain? Well, to find out more, joining me now is Matthew Biggin, who's a Commodities Analyst at BMI. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to be here.
All right, Matthew, just for some context here, how has coffee prices, performed in comparison to other commodity assets in the past year?
Yeah, so specifically in the context of the wider agricultural commodity complex, coffee was certainly one of the strongest performers. So second month ICE-listed coffee futures gained around 70% throughout 2024. Comparing that performance against other commodities, it'd be an oversight to not mention cocoa here. So while cocoa and coffee were the standouts in terms of price gains throughout 2024, cocoa ended 2024 with second month futures up by around 160%. So clearly it was cocoa that saw the strongest upward price action. Elsewhere, we had palm oil experienced a notable upturn, particularly in the fourth quarter, which contributed to a 22% increase by year-end. However, the broad agricultural complex faced downward pressure due to easing grain prices throughout the year. As well, it's important to highlight that while cocoa and coffee were top performers overall, the gap between them narrowed in the second half of the year. So during this period, coffee prices rose by 40%, whereas cocoa saw a 50% gain. So this indicates that although cocoa clearly had the most significant annual increase, coffee remained a strong contender, particularly in the latter half of 2024.
I see. What factors contributed to the run-up in coffee prices?
So fundamentally, the run-up in prices has stemmed from a narrative of tightening global supplies off the back of adverse weather conditions in key coffee-producing markets, which has triggered simultaneous worsening to the harvest outlook in those markets. So in Vietnam, the world's leading Robusta exporter, drought conditions, late rains and high temperatures linked to the recent El Nino event have led to a forecasted production decline of 8% year-on-year for the 24-25 season. And as a result of that, exportable supplies have taken a significant hit, with the latest data indicating a year-on-year reduction of about 17%. In addition to that, Brazil, major Arabica producing states have experienced below average rainfall, which has led to a reduction in production forecasts. So for the Brazilian 24-25 crop, expectations were reduced due to weak milling yields. In addition, poor weather, specifically high temperatures and late rains, also saw the outlook for Central America pegged back. And against this backdrop, the continued reports of adverse weather and challenges with Brazil's 25-26 crop have prompted market responses that they probably wouldn't typically. So together, these factors have been the persistent driver of upward price momentum throughout 2024, and they'll continue to provide support over the coming months.
I mean, you mentioned unfavorable weather conditions there. I mean, over the past season, unfavorable weather conditions in Vietnam have weighed on the domestic Robusta coffee harvest. Will this continue to have a big impact on coffee prices in 2025?
So developments in Vietnam, they're always going to have a big impact on global coffee prices. And should adverse weather trigger a significant reduction in harvest expectations for the 25-26 crop, then naturally markets will respond to that, with prices gaining further upside support. A key characteristic of the Vietnamese coffee market over the past few years has been the drawdown in stocks. So with the USDA's estimates projecting season-ending stocks to reach 840,000 tonnes in the 24-25 season, and that's down from around 3.5 million tonnes in the 22-23 season. And this just further increases the market sensitivity to developments with seasonal production estimates. However, I'd just caveat this with, we do expect Vietnam's 25-26 harvest to see a year-on-year upturn of just over 7%. The harvest for this crop will begin later in 2025. And should these production estimates remain and not be downgraded, we could see prices begin to ease as the narrative switches to a focus on the 25-26 harvest rather than the reduced supplies of the 24-25 harvest.
I see. I see. Well, poor weather conditions in Vietnam have also increased attention towards Brazil's harvest, but Brazil is also experiencing deteriorations in its supply outlook. So with Brazil's harvest also experiencing deterioration in supply, will prices continue to rise in that matter?
To begin with, it's crucial to highlight the potential for continued price increases following a reduction in supply is largely dependent on whether consumer demand can be maintained at elevated price levels. So as a result of that, I'd exercise caution before making any definitive claims that prices will persist in rising. Additionally, it's vital to acknowledge that the price dynamics will be significantly shaped by developments in the harvest outlook moving forward. So, as previously mentioned, expectations for Brazil's coffee harvest have been adjusted downward, with CONAB revising its overall coffee production estimate downward by nearly 7% as of September 24. So this adjustment has already had a notable impact on market prices, with those listed on the Intercontinental Exchange experiencing an increase of nearly 30% since this revision. So consequently, as a result of that, the critical takeaway is that current pricing already reflects the extent to which the market believes the harvest outlook has diminished, and future price movements will be contingent upon whether the supply scenario deviates further from or aligns with existing expectations, either deteriorating or stabilising as new information becomes available.
I see. Well, does market sentiment then for coffee futures remain bullish for 2025? What are some key themes attributing to this bullish sentiment?
It would definitely be fair to say that market sentiment for coffee remains bullish for 2025. This sentiment is evident in the latest Commodity Futures Trading Commission's Commitment of Traders report, and this shows an increase in the net long position held by managed money. So this net long position, which is just calculated as the difference between the number of long and short positions in future and options, has risen by approximately 2.5% week on week as of the 1st January reading. This shift reflects continued confidence amongst speculators in the coffee market's upward potential over the coming months. A significant longer-term trend contributing to this bullish outlook is the substantial reduction in short positions. So since the beginning of Q4 2024, short positions have been slashed by around 60%. This trend is likely driven by expectations of a challenging harvest and the increased risks associated with maintaining short positions in a rising price environment. In terms of the factors underpinning the bullish sentiment, so I've already mentioned the concerns over Brazil's 25-26 crop, but this is actually part of a wider narrative of reduced supplies from Brazil. So based on the USDA's latest figures, Brazil's season-ending stocks since the 22-23 season have eased from 4.6 million tonnes to a projected 1.2 million tonnes in the 24-25 season. Further to this, the market remains particularly sensitive to developments in Brazil, given its role as a major coffee producer, especially in the light of simultaneous declines in output from other key producing regions. So in summary, it's the combination of speculative positioning, weather-related supply concerns and Brazil's pivotal role in the coffee market, which are all contributing to the prevailing bullish sentiment for coffee as we head into 2025.
I see. Well, despite this bullish sentiment then, can prices for coffee peak this year? Can the yearly average be, below the record prices reached back in December 2024?
Yeah, so the trajectory of coffee prices this year will be largely dependent on developments related to Brazil's 25-26 crop. Global inventories are expected to draw down, with the 24-25 ending stocks easing by just over 6% year-on-year, and a loss of more than 20% compared to 2 seasons ago. This suggests a tight market through 2025, which it might not drive prices higher, but it will limit how much they fall. Now, Brazil's crop remains a key driver. However, the outlook for Vietnam's next crop is more positive, with our forecast indicating a year-on-year increase of 7% year-on-year due to an expected improvement in weather conditions. So if these forecasts continue to hold true as the crop season progresses, the narrative of tight supplies could start to ease, and this will start to weigh on prices, or it could start to weigh on prices in the second half of 2025. Given this, it's not anticipated by us that the yearly average price will surpass the prices of December 2024, when second-month ice-listed coffee prices averaged around 320 cents per pound. Its improvements in the 25-26 seasons in Vietnam and Central America are expected to support a moderation in prices.
I see. Well, are there any bearish factors in the coffee market then that investors should take note of?
So the persistent strength of the US dollar serves as a bearish element as it makes US dollar denominated coffee more expensive for international buyers and potentially dampening demand. As previously mentioned, we anticipate that improved weather conditions in key coffee producing regions will become a more significant bearish factor as 2025 progresses. Additionally, the level of certified stocks, while still near historic lows, suggests some improvement over recent months. However, when considering both certified and non-certified stocks, global levels are very low. Fundamentally, stocks are tight at present, and the focus will be on the success of this season's production. A significant downturn in a major producing market could lead to an aggressive rise in global prices. That said, a crucial factor in determining prices will be the extent to which demand can withstand the elevated prices. Given the inelasticity of coffee demand, we believe that consumers will continue to purchase coffee despite price increases, although persistent high prices could eventually impact consumption patterns.
Thank you so much. That was Matthew Biggin, Commodities Analyst at BMI. This has been the Wealth Tracker with me, Hongbin Jeong.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.